Hey everybody, ABC 10 meteorologist Brenden Mincheff here with an extended forecast because we've got a strong early season storm just around the corner. This weekend is going to be fine, just to be clear. If you got plans Saturday, Sunday, no matter what you're doing, no weather issues across Northern California. Completely different story when we get to Monday. So this is why we've got a weather impact alert. Beginning Monday, continuing through at least Tuesday. We may extend this out. We're going to wait a couple days and see how long this system ends up sticking around, but definitely coming in Monday, it's going to be soggy. We're tracking rain, we're tracking snow, and it's going to be gusty across Northern California as well. Here's the timeline. Again, this weekend, completely fine. It'll be a nice weekend. Plenty of sunshine, especially on Saturday. By Sunday, again, more sunshine, but we will start to see some clouds building in as we get into those late afternoon, early evening hours of Sunday. But that's it. Not tracking any rain, not tracking any snow. If you have any plans, I will say one more time, Saturday, Sunday, just fine. Highs in the low to middle 70s. Okay, here's where the storm starts to come in. On Monday, mostly dry in the morning. Some scattered showers possible if you're headed out to the Bay Area or maybe the North Coast. You're going to see some rain, especially the further up the coast you go. But in terms of the capital region, in terms of the valley as a whole, we really aren't going to see that rain arriving until closer to lunchtime. At least this is how the models look as of Friday evening. By the time we get towards the afternoon, though, and that evening commute, we're looking at moderate to heavy rain in the valley. We'll start to see some snow flurries in the high country, but the snow really ramps up after sunset on Monday. So overnight, Monday into Tuesday, that's when the snow starts to get going. It's going to be a soggy day on Tuesday. We're going to continue to see moderate to heavy rain in the valley. We'll continue to see moderate snowfall in the Sierra. Not necessarily a huge Sierra storm in terms of snow totals, but we could see totals of a foot, perhaps a little bit more, especially as you work your way south of Tahoe. So we're definitely talking chain control potential here in terms of snowfall. By Wednesday, this is the day that models keep going back and forth on a little bit. It may continue to be a little soggy, especially through the first half of the day, but it is expected that the rain and snow will taper off at least by the second half of Wednesday. So we'll go into more detail here, but I do want to show you there's fairly good model agreement now between the American model and the European model. This is Tuesday at lunchtime. So again, storm's already pushing in. It's been raining, been snowing for a little while. You see still plenty of rain across Northern California on the European and the American models, and we're starting to see that snow across even the Tahoe Basin as well. Now, the models, especially in terms of snowfall, have gone a little bit back and forth. Here is why. It depends entirely on the storm track. So we know that this low is going to be dropping in off the coast. What the low does once it hits about Cape Mendocino is where the models have been kind of waffling a little bit. On Wednesday, the models were showing this storm kind of coming in right around Fort Bragg. That would mean an earlier arrival in terms of rain in the valley and snow in the high country. It also meant the most snow because you got this system running almost perpendicular, right? 90 degrees into the northern and central Sierra. What changed on Thursday, though, the models kind of went all the way the other direction. It was keeping the storm off the coast, bringing that rain and snow in later. So that was a later arrival, almost really holding off until Tuesday morning. This also meant the least amount of snow in the forecast for the Sierra because this storm was really just kind of skirting the high country. It wasn't directly impacting Tahoe. So we have seen some snow in the southern Sierra, but not nearly as much near Tahoe. However, it did mean more rain, especially for the coast in the Bay Area, but also for the capital region because that heavier precipitation was being dragged with the center of that storm moving westward. However, by the time we got to Friday, the models have moved once again and are starting to bring this storm in basically across the Bay Area and then curving in towards the southern and central Sierra. This brings the storm in around midday on Monday, still bringing inches of snow to the high country and a good soaking rain to the valley. We could be talking about inches of rain in the valley, up to 2, but we may also be talking about less than that. Again, that final rain and snow total is going to depend entirely on where this storm comes in. Is it going to be north along Interstate 80? Is it going to stay offshore for longer? I really do think that we're honing in here on this kind of track where it brings the storm in across the Bay Area. That's where the models have kind of gone back and forth on, but I do tend to favor this solution. But we're going to have to wait and see. We'll know for sure once we get towards Monday morning and that storm is a lot closer what it's going to do in terms of stay offshore or come inland and exactly when that move inland happens. As we look at Futurecast, overnight Saturday, some clouds, some maybe very light showers across parts of the high country. But by Saturday afternoon, plenty of sunshine, a few stray clouds. That's going to be about it. Again, plenty of sunshine for Sunday. A very nice weekend ahead with temperatures well below normal in the low to middle 70s, both Saturday and Sunday. But by Sunday afternoon into the early evening, we are going to start to see those clouds coming in ahead of this next system that'll start to push in near the coast by Monday morning. So again, by the time we get to Monday morning and you're watching Rob early Monday on ABC 10, he's going to have a much better idea of exactly where this storm is headed. Of course, you know, we know that rain and snow are coming, but we all want to know exactly when, exactly how much. We'll have a better idea by the time we get to early next week and we get a lot of those high resolution models coming in. But as of Friday evening, we're going to see some heavier rain, potentially some thunder along the north coast by about 7 a.m. on Monday. But if you're in the capital region, even if you're headed to the Bay Area, we're going to be looking at mostly dry conditions for that Monday morning commute. It's once we get to lunchtime into the afternoon and evening hours on Monday that we're going to see the heavier rain start to move into the valley as this low, again, rides down the coast for most of Monday before starting to make its way inland by the time we get into Monday and Tuesday. So this is now overnight Monday, Tuesday, and we start to see the snow really picking up across the high country. Southern Sierra is going to get a decent snowfall out of this. The question marks are really around Tahoe because it depends on if this storm is going to continue to track south and then move in, or if that storm is going to track towards the Bay Area and then move in. We're just going to have to wait and see. That's why there's a kind of range of snowfall potential for Tahoe. But notice as we go through Tuesday, regardless of that exact track, it is going to be soggy. Plenty of rain across the valley, snow across the high country, basically from Tahoe to the south. Once we get into Wednesday, again, still some questions as to how quickly this storm will get out of here. But it does look fairly wet for the first half of Wednesday. But from lunchtime onwards, that storm starts to move out and we start to dry out for the second half of Wednesday. Before we talk the model of rainfall and snowfall totals, I do want to talk winds because that's the other thing we're going to see. It's going to be very windy, especially on Monday. So this is Monday at 2 o'clock. Notice the purple shading here. That's indicating gusts of about 50 miles per hour. And that's what we see in South Lake Tahoe. A wind gust there on the model of about 47 miles per hour, closer to 40 miles per hour up in Truckee. But again, when we talk about the high country, there's so many valleys, so many peaks, just a lot of terrain influence. Some places will see stronger winds. Other places may not see as strong winds, especially if you're sheltered. Across the valley, not really anywhere to seek shelter from those winds. We're going to see wind gusts of about 30 plus miles per hour on Monday afternoon. It tapers off a little bit, but then those winds pick back up Tuesday morning. This is early Tuesday morning. At midnight on Tuesday, it'll be a gusty overnight period on Monday into Tuesday. And it'll still be breezy to gusty for Tuesday, but just not as strong as what we saw on Monday. So just keep that in mind as well. Maybe bring some of those Halloween decorations in ahead of the wind and ahead of the soggy conditions. All right, let's talk some of the storm highlights. How much snow, how much rain? Again, there's a range because of the high uncertainty in the storm track. However, this being said, I'm looking at a half an inch of rain in the valley on the low end. I think that really is a low end scenario. I think we're talking about rainfall totals closer to an inch for most. However, the European model has been sticking close to 2 inches of rain in places like Sacramento during the duration of this storm. So there's a definite possibility that we end up at the end of this storm, when it's all said and done, we end up with 2 inches of rain across many places in the valley. Temperatures for sure going to be very cool, 60 to about 65 degrees Monday through Wednesday. That Sierra snow, again, there's a range here because it depends on the track. If we're talking about the Tahoe area, could be as low as about 2 inches, could be as high as about 15 inches. There's also a very good chance that Interstate 80 is going to fare better in this storm than Highway 50. The further south of Tahoe you go, the more snow that we're expected to see. So Highway 50 may end up with 6 to 12 inches of snow, whereas Interstate 80 ends up with 2 to maybe 6 inches of snow. Again, we're going to see a range of snowfall totals here. In the further south of Tahoe you are, the more snow that you're going to see. However, snow level is about 6,500 feet, so we're definitely within the pass level there, well below the passes by about 1,000 feet, 500 to 1,000 feet. So we're definitely going to end up with snow across Donner, across Echo. It just is kind of a matter of how much. And again, as we talked about, that valley wind 20 to 35 miles per hour Monday through Wednesday. So it is going to be breezy to gusty. Here is the American model in terms of rainfall totals. About an inch of rain across the valley. It's been somewhat consistent over the last 36 hours or so of bringing in about an inch of rain to the valley. Definitely a possibility, some heavier rainfall totals up in the foothills as per usual. But the European model has also been fairly consistent with bringing in about 2 inches of rain to much of the valley. You see 1.9 in Sacramento, 2.2 in Elk Grove, also 2.2 in Stockton, 1.8 Vacaville. We'll see. This is definitely the higher end scenario. But again, it's been consistent, so we're just going to wait and see until we're a little bit closer to the arrival time of that storm. In terms of snowfall totals, the European model is showing anywhere between about 4 inches at Truckee, a little bit more across Donner, 5 inches in South Lake Tahoe, a little bit more across Echo. And then we look at Bear Valley here with about 8 inches, 4 inches in Markleeville. But notice as you work your way south towards Yosemite, the peaks in Yosemite and the Southern Sierra likely to see closer to a foot or more of snow. Again, this is one model. The models keep going back and forth, but I think this is a good ballpark there of about 6 inches possible across both Interstate 80 and US 50. But also be ready if we in fact get more. I think especially we could end up with more on Highway 50. There is a winter storm watch which begins at 11 a.m. on Monday, continues till 5 o'clock on Wednesday. This is a very early winter storm watch. We don't typically see that first winter storm watch go out until about November 8th. That is the average date of that first winter storm watch. So this one, for this storm that begins on Monday, this is the earliest winter storm watch since 2012 that's been issued by the National Weather Service in Sacramento, with the current warning system, which started in 2006, so data goes all the way back to 2006. So again, this is an early season storm, a very, very strong early season winter storm with the earliest winter storm watch by the NWS Sacramento since 2012. This weekend, nice in the 70s, plenty of sunshine, clouds start to build late Sunday. Then that storm arrives on Monday. We got a weather impact alert Monday and Tuesday. Temperatures are going to stay in the 60s for much of next week, anywhere between the low to mid 60s for most. By the time we get to Thursday, Friday, we start to dry out a little bit. But again, that average high is close to 80 degrees right now in Sacramento. You don't see anywhere near 80 degrees over the next 10 days. Even after that storm passes, we're still talking about temps in the upper 60s and low 70s into next weekend. So this is a storm that we definitely need to be prepared for. Make sure your tires are good. Make sure you got chains ready if you're going to go across the Sierra. Make sure your wiper blades are ready to handle the rain and or the snow if you're in the high country. Make sure your wiper blades are good. You got all weekend to prepare, even the first half of Monday before this storm comes in. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC 10 and ABC 10 Plus. That's our streaming app. You can download it wherever you stream. We've got a weather playlist, and you will find more forecasts like this one, weather explainers. And of course, you can watch us live as well from that ABC 10 Plus app. Thanks for watching. We got a storm on the way. Stay tuned.